Good morning, class. This is Reader's Workshop time. This is where I read to you and you concentrate on voice fluctuation, changing the sound of your voice, making it interesting for the listeners or for yourself to hear, using punctuation marks. Also, I want you to focus on the characters of the story. What is their reasoning for being in there? Are they nice? Are they kind? Are they mean? Are they young? Are they old? Are they wicked? So, changing your voice. If you come to a period, you stop, take a breath. If you see an exclamation mark, that's when you're yelling or you're excited. Happy birthday! If you come to a question mark, you're asking a question. Is that your pencil? And you're waiting for an answer from someone. If you see a comma between words, stop, take a breath, count to 3, continue reading until you get to an end of a punctuation mark. If you see quotation marks, that means the words inside someone's doing the talking. So change your voice to that character to make your reading interesting. Okay? Now, this week is the focus of fiction and traditional literature. And I've chosen traditional literature. And today, I'm going to read about Thumbelina. Thumbelina was adapted. That means the author took the story and changed it a little bit to make it their own. Lynn Roberts illustrated. The person who did the pictures by Jane Madej. Once there was a woman who lived alone in a tiny cottage, a little house. She loved her beautiful garden and the birds that sang there, but she longed for a child to share her joy. One day an old peddler woman, a woman that sells goods, came to her gate. "I believe I have something that can help you," the peddler told her kindly. She pulled a small bundle from one of her pockets. "Take these seeds and plant them in your garden. Within a month you will find your heart's desire. I wish you luck, my dear." The woman thanked the peddler and planted the seeds. As soon as she watered them, a beautiful tulip, that's a flower, grew from the earth. "What a lovely flower," said the woman. She bent down to kiss its delicate petals, the part that's colorful. When she did, the petals opened. Sitting in the center, in the middle of the flower, was a beautiful child she had ever seen. "Dear child," she said, "you are no bigger than my thumb. I will call you Thumbelina." And the woman cared for Thumbelina like her own daughter, and they spent their days in the garden, and the woman was perfectly contented, happy at last. So here she's with the old woman that gave her the seeds, and here Thumbelina is small as the inside of that flower, the tulip. One day the woman stepped into the cottage for a moment while Thumbelina was happily in the garden. The tiny girl's sweet singing attracted the attention of an old ugly toad who was hopping. "She is a pretty little thing," he thought to himself. "I would like to make her my wife." So he wants to marry her. The toad grabbed Thumbelina from the garden and brought her to his lily pad in a distant pond. Wait here while I make our wedding preparations," he told her. So he said, "You wait here until I get all the wedding stuff together." Thumbelina strained to glimpse at the edge of the pond, but the water stretched as far as she could see. She knelt to the lily pad and began to cry. Her tears made ripples in the pond and brought some curious fish to the surface, to the top of the water. They took pity on the girl and nibbled through the lily pad stem, through the part that sticks out. They floated the lily pad down the stream. As she alighted on the shore, Thumbelina thanked the fish for their help. She walked as far as her legs could carry her, but she did not know where to find her mother's garden. As night fell, she wove a tiny hammock. It's a little bed that swings between trees, but here she has them swinging between flowers because she's so small, from blades of grass. And here she's crying. Here, where the toad put her on the lily pad. And here's the hammock made of blades of grass where she's going to sleep. Thumbelina searched the woods for many weeks, looking for her mother. Then the leaves changed colors, and the nights grew colder as winter approached. Winter was coming. One day, Thumbelina wandered further than ever before. As night began to fall, she found herself a great distance from her shelter. She was far from where she was staying. A wolf howled, "Ooh," in the distance, and Thumbelina began to run. In her haste, in her hurry, she tripped over a tree root and fell. Suddenly, she saw a small door in the bottom of the tree trunk. Thumbelina knocked shyly. The door opened a crack, and a little field mouse looked out. When the mouse saw the lovely girl on her doorstep, she invited her in to warm herself by the fire. After hearing of Thumbelina's plight, of her story, the kind mouse invited her to stay through the winter. Thumbelina helped the field mice gather food and supplies for the cold months ahead, and then the two friends settled down together in the burrow, in the hole of the ground. One day a strange sound brought the field mouse and Thumbelina to the window. There they saw a sparrow, those little brown birds we have, with an injured wing. He had been traveling south for the winter, but now he could no longer fly. The sparrow knew he could not survive, he could not live the cold winter outside. The hospitable, the friendly, nice field mouse welcomed the sparrow into her home, and Thumbelina helped him into the burrow and tried to make him comfortable. And here you see Thumbelina with the field mice inside the house, and there's the sparrow on the bottom there with the wounded wing. The sparrow was surprised to see such a tiny person living with the field mouse. "Are you a fairy princess?" he asked Thumbelina. "What's a fairy?" she asked. "Someday when my wing is better, I will show you," answered the sparrow, and Thumbelina asked if he was one of the lovely birds that had taught her to sing in her mother's garden. He was not, but his cousin had told him stories of a singing with a tiny girl. Thumbelina was overjoyed. "Yes, it was I who sang with your cousin. What a glorious voice he has." And Thumbelina began to sing to the sparrow and the little field mouse, and they were delighted by her sweet voice and insisted that she sing for them every day. The winter passed quite quickly, and in the snug little burrow, the sparrow's wing soon healed and got better, and the friends entertained themselves with stories and songs. They even built a tiny stage for themselves from a human-sized thimble. Thimble was a little metal thing in the olden days. Women used to wear them, or tailors, men that sewed clothes, wear on the thumb, so that when they were sewing and pushing the needle through the clothing for sewing, they wouldn't push it through their skin and hurt themselves. You'll see it in the picture, she's standing on it. They even built a tiny stage for themselves with a human-sized thimble. Although she was happy all winter long, Thumbelina continued to dream of her mother and their garden. She longed to return to her home. Right where my thumb is, right there. That's the thimble that they used to use for sewing, right here. She's standing on it as if it's a place to perform. When spring arrived, the sparrow offered to carry Thumbelina to her mother's cottage. They parted sadly from their friend the field mouse. Then they flew off into the fresh spring air. "I have a surprise for you, Thumbelina," the sparrow told her as he landed on the flower. "I have brought you to the land where the fairies live, as I promised." Just then the white flower opened to reveal a perfect little boy. He was the same size as Thumbelina. On his back was a pair of wings, and he also wore a tiny golden crown. He was the prince of the fairies. The prince asked Thumbelina to be his bride. He placed a golden crown on her head. Then 2 smaller fairies put on a pair of delicate wings on her back. Thumbelina curtsied, bowed in pleasure, and happy to have found creatures like her. "I will marry you, Prince," she answered happily, "but you and the fairies must come live with me in my mother's garden. I will never be happy anywhere else." And the sparrow guided Thumbelina and the other fairies back to her mother's home. When they arrived, the woman was overjoyed to see her dear daughter again. She was also delighted by the fairies. Every summer the sparrow visited the garden where they all lived happily ever after. And here the sparrow's taken her to the fairyland, and here she's married to the prince, living at her mother's garden happily ever after. Now, this is your time to do some reading. You either read to your relatives, read to yourself, read to a pet, but read to someone. Make sure when you see punctuation marks, change your voice, change the sound of your voice, use voice fluctuation, and think of the characters of who's in your story. Are they mean? Are they kind? Are they nice? And if you don't have a book, then reread one of the handouts from the websites. Until next time, happy reading!